In this example, we're going to do the entire workflow related to extracting geometry from a CAD drawing. We're assuming here it's already been saved in the AutoCAD DWG format. So I'm going to do a file open here. File open AutoCAD file. I'm going to open this DWG right here. This is a fairly good example. Now the first thing I want to do once you get a model in is make sure that the units are correct. So I'm going to just go to units here, type in the unit feature, and set those units so that they're, in this case, in inches, because this is an architectural, so it's really going to be in inches. Okay, so there's my inches. There's my model. I've now set the units for inches, so that when I open my CoolSim for AutoCAD tool, it will report in inches. Now what I want to do with this tool is really this data hall has two data centers. There's one here, as you can see because it's the walls there, and there's another one down here. So there's two of them that are completely separate in this particular DWG model. I'm going to work on the lower one just to give you an example of how to do it. There are two methods for selecting. There's one is called internal selection, where it's a polygon, a full polygon like one of these cooling units or a PDU. Those are isolated polygons. There are others that are not. For example, these tiles are not, and of course some of the other objects in here have lines through them, like the structure over here, or even this one has lines through it. So we're going to have to, it looks like that one wasn't included anyway. The customer is saying this one is not there. So in those cases, when you see something like this, you can use diagonal opposites, where you select the upper left and the lower right to draw your polygon. Otherwise, you can use internal selection. So I'm going to use, to do the room, I have to draw a rectangular box. You see, the room is not perfectly rectangular. It actually has kind of a funny shape to it. It's pretty much rectangular. It starts up here and ends down here on this one, but it's got a bump out here and there. You can add those in later if you want, just to represent them, either in the CoolSim side, or you can even do it here, because we do have blocks. I find it's easier to do a lot of this on the CoolSim side. What I really want from the DWG is to basically get the location of the racks and the cooling units defined. The rest of it I can do on the CoolSim side pretty easily, including tiles, because they snap in. But here I want to know where the cooling units are and where the racks are, because that has a dominant effect on the overall performance of the data hall. Okay, I'm going to use diagonal opposites here, and I'm going to set the height for some number. I'm going to use 120 inches, so it's a 10-foot room. I don't know that for sure. I'm assuming it. We can adjust that later. I'm assuming the plenum is 24 inches. Again, I don't know that. We can set that later if we want to adjust it once it's on the CoolSim side. And now what I do is I need to pick upper left. Now it's important to pick a vertex that's outside of the objects you're going to later pick, or these will end up out of the room. You want to pick something that's a good representation. I'm going to pick that point right there. And then I've got to go down to the lower right-hand corner and find one. And you notice this has some detail here that's not quite appropriate, because the wall comes down and we don't really care about this section, but we want to get down here far enough. So I'm going to pick this point right here. We'll go right here for the edge of the room. Okay. Now the room will pop like that in blue. That means I've got the room. The room is defined. And now I can just hide it with this hide command right here, because I'm done defining the room. All right, so I select that and it goes away. Now let's go first of all for racks. Racks are here, defined, and we have a very nice rack counter here. So I'm going to just show you how this works. I'm not going to do them all, but I'll just show you a few. You see here, here's the first rack row in the upper left-hand corner, 50. And you see, these are perforated tiles over here. So this is, on this side, we've got cold aisle. This side's cold aisle. Looks like they're pointing towards hot. This is probably ceiling. A tile, or a tile that's coming out of the ceiling for ceiling plenum return. We can add that in later on the CoolSim side. So let's first do the racks. I'm going to go to the rack section here. And I'm going to pick internal selection because these are full polygons. That's really quite nice. It's faster to do it that way. So I'm going to do internal selection. I need the height of the rack. Now most racks, generally speaking, are 7 feet tall, roughly. Again, height doesn't matter all that much as long as you're close. So if they're 7 feet tall, then it's going to be 84 inches. So we put in 84. Load, again on those racks, average watts per rack, you can put it here, but again, you can adjust it on the CoolSim side. So I generally don't worry too much about load over on this side. I'm going to leave it as a default of 4 kilowatts. Airflow direction is important. I need to define it. Here's my coordinate system. So it is a negative x in this case. The airflow is going to be, no, in fact, it's going the other way. So it's going to be going positive x. So I need to set that. Incremental racks. What this means is I've got a counter here. So I can go in this direction. I'm going to start with the one in the upper left-hand corner. And it is going to increment in the negative y direction. So that is negative y increment. I'm going to use internal selection, and I'm just going to go grab that first one. I'm just going to select it to see if things are correct. So yes, you see my airflow direction is correct. I've got it going in this direction. Looks like it grabbed the whole polygon. Now it's quite easy to go over here and just set the counter to whatever you want it to be. In this case, I'm going to have this 5 racks right there. So I just set this counter to 5. And there's my 5 racks. Very, very easy, very, very quick. Now I'm going to show you how to do the crack units as well. Same method. So here I'm going to do cracks. But the crack they don't have a counter, of course, because they're generally just one of them. Height on crack units, again, you can adjust it on the CoolSim side. You may want to, in fact, replace it with a library unit on the CoolSim side, so you don't have to get too carried away here. Height of these things is generally about 6 feet tall if it's a downflow, and that's what this one is. So I'm going to put in 72 inches. We can, again, adjust that later. Looks like I can do internal selection because that's a complete polygon right there, so internal selection. And so I just go here and I just select it. Please check height parameters. That'll happen sometimes. For some reason it doesn't pick up the height parameter, so you just touch the height parameter and touch it again, or adjust it again, and then you'll get that. When it turns blue, you've got it. Okay? Now remember that you can edit all of this stuff from here, so if you want to edit the cooling unit, you can select any one of them and edit. I'll go get a couple of them here so you can see how that's done. There's another one. There's another one. Okay, so that's, and you can edit any one of these by just hitting the edit command and changing the capacity or the height. Okay, so it has edit capability. Everything else is pretty much the same way. So we go here, PDU, here's a PDU. So I have a PDU tool. Again, I'm going to do polygon. That's the quickest thing to do. I need to set the height. These things tend to run about 4 or 5 feet tall. So 5 would be 60, so I put in 60. Heat load, this is the thermal component. It's in watts, so it might be 100 watts or 200 watts. They don't use a lot of heat, these things. Internal selection again, so I can just select that. I can get all the PDUs that way. Now, to test whether or not this is actually working correctly, I'm going to want to test my export. And I recommend you do this every once in a while. This is a way to both save your work and make sure that the units are coming out right. So let's do an export. I'm going to do an export here. It's in inches. So I'm going to export it out. We'll put it in a directory somewhere. I'll just put it in, I'm just going to call it temp_CFA, CoolSim for AutoCAD. And I'm going to write that out. Notice it's a CFA file. Okay. So now I can go, and it exported correctly. This means that everything was in the room. I didn't have any issues with it. Now I'm going to go over to CoolSim, and I'm going to import that. So I open up my CoolSim application, and I do import from AutoCAD. So here is my application. It popped up on my other display. So I'm here and I go File, Import from AutoCAD. And then I navigate to that location. So I put that in my CoolSim examples under CAD models. It could have been I put it under AutoCAD. Yep, there it is right there. There's my temp CFA. So now I open it and it lays it in quite nicely. Okay, so that's right where they were. If you compare the two, that's where they are. You can do that for all of your racks. Now, once you're here, once you get it in here, you can start to work with it. And what I would recommend is lay the racks in, get them positioned in here, get the PDUs in, get the cooling units in place. And then you can go back and do things like blocks. Here, for example, this does jut out a bit. You see it juts out just a little. There's a step there. It steps out. I generally put those in as blocks in the AutoCAD side. So, on the CoolSim side. So I'll use this tool to kind of understand what the dimensions are. There is a simple, I think it's measure. It's either measure or it's dimension. I can't quite remember which one it is. So maybe it's dimensions. Yep, looks like dimensions will do it. Looks like measure would do it as well. You people probably know AutoCAD better than I do. So here's measure geometry. So I generally just use the measure tool to get a distance. So I just, use it to find out I need a block that's 4 feet by 30 feet. So then over on the CoolSim side, I just drag in a block. So my block is right, where is my block? Right here. And it comes in as a rectangular block. So I don't really want it as a rectangular block. I want it as a general block. Actually, rectangular in this case, column is fine. Column's going to go right from the floor to the ceiling, and that's what that would do. So I want the dimension Z to be 30. I want the dimension X to be 3 feet. So now I have my block, and I can just, and you can drag things out of CoolSim and just let them snap back. So if I pull it out like this and let go of it, it goes right to the wall, just like that. So that's how I put my blocks in, and now we'll see it in 3D. Everything is beginning to lay in there pretty well. And you just keep doing that. You can save this off now as a CoolSim project. When you do a save as, it's wherever you want to put it. It's now a CSP. You can begin to build your data center like that. I would advise you not to get too far ahead of yourself. Export a few of these CFAs, these CoolSim for AutoCAD files. So start to build, do an export, do it again, do an export. Be careful not to try to import multiple CFA files into CoolSim because they do append. They go on to the top of one another. So if the room is the same, you could do cracks first and then racks and so on, not change the room. But if you do add objects and then you add them again, they will duplicate. So if I were to select these again and do another export, they would be on top of one another. But in general, I find this tool works fairly well. It's a great way to get the room laid out quickly and effectively before you move into CoolSim and start using the tools in here. CoolSim has a lot of labor-saving tools once you're in here, including clone. So you can take a group and you can clone it with offset. So that's just a really handy thing to have. You can set your parameters up over here. So I don't spend a lot of time in AutoCAD other than to get the room laid out approximately, get the cooling units in place, and get the racks roughly in place. And that's primarily what I use it for. Thank you. I hope this has been helpful.